Hello YouTube, my name is Agent Omega, and I do things. Today, we are in a Redstone build video. It was actually inspired by Mumbo's recent Melon and Pumpkin farm, as if it wasn't inherently obvious by the title below. So what I've done is I've ported in Mumbo's most efficient design right behind us, and I saw the video, and I thought to myself, you know, I've never really built a miniature farm before. Like, the closest thing I ever did was in a creative world once. I built a miniature cooked chicken farm based upon, you know, some of the designs that I'd seen in the Hermitcraft series, and I was going to turn it into a shop on the Infinity Evolved server 2 years ago. And so that's basically the only farm I've done, much less, you know, the only mini farm I've done. So I wanted to take a look at Mumbo's melon farm and just sort of go through a thought experiment, see what designs I could come up with, you know, maybe try to tweak a couple of efficient things. And frankly speaking, I don't think I'm probably going to beat Mumbo in efficiency. But what I can do is show you the designs I came up with, elaborate on the thought process behind them, and, you know, sort of do the same test where we run at 100 random ticks for about 10 minutes and see, you know, how much each farm produces. So with that, let's get on with the designs. Now, I actually started working on this one first, and basically I thought to myself, so we have, you know, the melons on one side, the pumpkins on another side, and this sort of maximizes the amount of surrounding farmland, or so I thought. In reality, let's just compare to Mumbo's real quick. You know, we've got diagonal farmland, so this one is connected to one, this one has two, and obviously, you know, the ones in the middle each have two. Over here, we've got two is the lower bound. Actually, no, 3 is the lower bound, and 4 is the... No, hold on. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, okay, so 5 is the upper bound. So we've got 3 and 5 as our bounds, as opposed to 1 and 2. At least if I'm thinking about this correctly. I don't know if it's inclusive of the block itself or not. So I thought, you know, let's maximize farmland, and theoretically this is also completely lossless because it'll push all of the broken blocks into the center, and down beneath, you know, we've got 2 hopper carts in parallel rows. This actually wasn't terribly efficient because of another design principle I neglected to think about, but it's okay. It looks fairly interesting. It actually looks like, you know, one of the CPUs in a computer before you put it in. Except, you know, we don't really have the pins underneath. But that's beside the point. So that's the design I came up with. I also made it so that you can individually toggle each side off. But if you toggle off one side or the other, you do start losing efficiency because sometimes the blocks fly across to the other side. Originally, I had kind of wanted it so that I could have 2 double chests, one for melon and one for pumpkin. But then I started realizing that melons were showing up in the pumpkin chest and vice versa. So I switched to one chest. And, you know, the levers are really just, if we've capped up on melons, and, you know, we just need more pumpkins, we can shut off this side, and the pumpkin side will be a little bit lossy. But that's okay. The next design I came up with is this one. And it sacrifices amount of connected farmland, so it's definitely less efficient than this one. But this one is definitely the prettiest farm of all of them that I've come up with because we've got everything in a line and you can sort of see it nicely. Now, what this farm has in advantage is that it cuts down on the number of rails used because clearly we only need one rail line. The pistons will push everything over into this square, and if anything somehow ends up over here, the next time one of these triggers, it'll just get pushed over in here. So, theoretically lossless. I don't know what it'll do at, you know, 3 tick speed, so if you're just playing with the defaults, it might end up being a little bit lossy, but I think on average, you'll do fine. So then, after those 2 designs, I went back and watched Mumbo's video again, and I realized that the critical flaw of both of these is that each of the gourds only has one spot to grow on, and that actually reduces efficiency because it checks all of the surrounding blocks, and then if there's an open block, it does its random chance. So effectively, I was limiting myself. So even though I increased the farmland to, 3 and 5, which is pretty dang fantastic, it just wasn't working all that great. So that's when I came up with this design. Now, it's really difficult to see, but we've got the melons and pumpkins sort of laid out in a diamond shape, the stalks down here. So each of them has a minimum of 2 to grow in. The ones on the ends have 3. And this also sort of ensures that everything has 2 connected farmlands. So I kind of had hoped that it would be more efficient than Mumbo's design, but once again, let's just check over here real quick. A majority of the plants have 3 spaces to grow in, whereas over here, a majority of the plants only have 2 spaces to grow in. Specifically, these 4 in the middle only have 2 spaces to grow in, so that's probably slightly less efficient. Then I thought to myself, wait a minute. We only have 2 connected per plant, and we're actually, reducing the number of spots that have 3 available. So, rather than having 6 plants, let's cut it down to 4. And this way, each of them has 2 connected, and each of the plants has 3 possible spaces. Wow, words. 3 possible spaces to grow in. It's one of those days, folks. So you can kind of take a look in here, and you can see that we've got, 5 pistons, 3 spaces for each plant to grow in. Each of them is connected to farmlands. So that's going to be maybe as efficient as Mumbo's. Now, the weird thing is, I only wanted to use 1 minecart, because if I used 3, I would end up needing 6 powered rails, and that is not really resource great. So we cut down on the use of powered rails by having this sort of S shape, and let me tell you, this was rather difficult, because when I was placing down blocks, if I tried to make it S zigzag this way, the powered rail down at the end would keep updating and switching to this direction anyway. So I thought, alright, if the powered rails are going to keep going in that direction, let's zigzag the S like this. But then I came into an issue where trying to power this rail conditionally, I would end up updating this block here, and then the rail would turn this way. So then I just have a big old loop, and then this part was totally neglected. So that was rather unfortunate, and that's why I came up with this very sort of wonky indirect powering idea that I have presently. So another feature to note with all of these farms, and I actually updated Mumbo's as well, yes, is that I've added a comparator such that if this hopper fills up, the entire farm shuts off. And this is true for absolutely all of these. And I think, I could be mistaken, yeah, this one, so same thing. If this comparator fills up, only half of the farm will shut down, and same with this side. So again, it'll be loss less when it's in full operation, but if one side or the other fills up, then it'll start to get a little bit lossy. And that is about it. I will just go ahead and verify that we have the random tick speed set to 100 by doing that. Alright, and we are good to go. So theoretically, what I'm about to do is a fancy time-lapse. And if it works, we'll show the time-lapse. If it doesn't work, I'll just cut right to the end where we have our results. Now, I have verified that each of these farms work, but I have not determined their rough counts for a set duration of time. So, let's start the experiment. Now, this is the first ever time lapse that we've ever done on this channel before, so I'm also doing the narration or chat after having recorded it and actually done the recording for the rest of the bits. So this is going to be quite the nice experiment in AV editing. And I just wanted to talk about some of the specifics. We've actually got slightly less than 2.5 minutes of this because when I started the timer and I flipped the lever on, obviously I had to get from the lever to my filming position, and if I had this on a server, I could use a camera account or something like that to make it really easy. But we've got slightly less than 2.5 minutes because 10 div 4 is 2.5. And I'm playing back at 4 times speed, so that's the amount of time that we have remaining. I also went a little bit longer on the other side, but because all of the farms are hooked up together, I feel like the experimental results are not violated, despite the fact that we gone slightly a little bit over 10 minutes in the actual experiment and a little bit under 10 minutes in the actual recording. So that just is the explanation there. With the remaining about minute I have left, I just wanted to go into some of the stuff that I've been doing lately. On Thursday, Monster Hunter World came out for PC, and I've been loving that. I decided that because I basically used the insect glaive the entire time on the PS4 version, that I try out a different weapon, and I'm just having a great load of fun with the switch axe. It's super heavy hitting, really cool animations and such, stuff like that. I've also been busy with various tabletop games and other extracurricular activities that basically involve some of my IRL and net friends. So that's pretty much why the content as of late has sort of come to a trickle. I hope to get back into nature's beauty maybe next week. I want to do a little bit more exploring, but that's about it for that. So I'm going to cut this just a little bit short, and we'll get back to the normal speed right about now. Alright, so while we were recording that time-lapse, I kept thinking about a couple of thoughts about, other design considerations that I put in and kind of forgot to mention. So first, over here, one of the things I wanted to experiment with was attempting to break only one melon at a time, because I kind of figured if we only break one slot, then, we're not resetting a probability tick, and this is just all how I think the game works. It's not necessarily how it actually works. I haven't delved into code or decompilations or whatever, so I can't say I'm an expert on this type of stuff. But basically, I designed this one with the intent of only pushing one piston at a time. So if a particular fruit grew, then only that one would be broken, and the rest would keep ticking along, attempting to spawn. What ended up actually happening, I think, is that the two adjacent pistons also extended, and I believe that's due to how some timing stuff works. So we've got a sword in here, and... oh, no, never mind, I'm just being silly. So I'm thinking about the old design of the thing. I actually have no idea why the two adjacent pistons would extend. So let me know down in the comment section why you think that might be the case. Theoretically, with one sword up in here, that would emit a signal of 3. So this should be 3, 2, and 1. I mean, currently the system is powered off or disabled, so we're not going to be able to tell accurately through F3, but this should, operative word should, have a signal strength of 1, unless I've messed something up. So theoretically, only one piston at a time should extend, but for whatever reason I was getting, 2 or 3. The other consideration that I was thinking about... yes, was this one. So, down here, we've got the 2 carts, and the tracks are just 3 long. So that means we've got 4 powered rails and 2 normal rails, and that seems like kind of inefficient use of resources. Theoretically, if I got rid of the whole disable one half of the system or the other half, then you could just have a U shape, and then have, a powered rail here, powered rail there, and you would be able to cut back on the use of those. And in retrospect, I shouldn't have even said you can divide the system into half, because I revamped the design such that before we had a block here, a repeater here, and then going out the back, and block here, repeater here, such that the two sides were completely isolated. I've since removed that functionality, so in fact we really should redesign this so that there's only one lever like all the other systems. But that's kind of beside the point. And as noticed in the time lapse, or at least the recording it, I did see some pumpkins just sitting over here. So that is a thing that can possibly happen. Immediately afterward, it was swept away by another pumpkin that spawned just as I had stated. But again, with 3 random tick speed, I don't know if this would fire fast enough before, the 5-minute, I think it's 5-minute despawn time. I think that is everything that I thought about design-wise during the time lapse. So let's check what everything has. Now, this is Mumbo's design, of course altered so that we've got our little shutoff system, but that shouldn't have impacted the efficiency at all. The other thing I did was I used stairs with the waterlogged property to irrigate the farmland. So that's also slightly different than his build, but let's give it a check. Oh, wow, yeah, I can't even compete with this. This is insane. Look at this. So we've got 5, 7, 8 stacks plus 17 of melon, and 1 stack plus 49 of pumpkin. That is just ludicrous. I don't think any of my designs can possibly keep up with that. So I guess the only reason to build any of them is just they look pretty, I suppose. So let's check this one. This is probably going to be the least efficient one by my estimates. Yeah, so we've got 3 stacks melon, 50 as a remainder, and 42 pumpkin. This is not looking good for me. Yeah, 3 stacks melon plus 8 and 50 pumpkin. So I don't know why, but this one did better on the pumpkin, probably because of the surrounding farmland properties that I talked about earlier. Now this one should be more efficient than both of those two, so let's give this one a shot. 4 stacks plus 12 and 38. That's not great. And finally, let's hope this one isn't totally embarrassing. Nope. 4 stacks plus 37 and 37 pumpkins. So this one is a clear winner, and I'm not entirely sure why. I think... No, I have no clue. So if you have a better idea as to why this one worked better, then feel free to leave that in the comments section. Yeah, because each of these, there are 4 of them that have 3 spots available, 2 of them that only have 2, and each of them have farmland of 2. So I would think that... Oh yeah, maybe this is more efficient. Alright, so let's assume that it's a ratio thing. If I were to add another third onto this thing... Nah, we still can't compete. Good job, Mumbo. You've made a truly efficient farm that is impossible to beat. At least with my design considerations. So the only thing my farms have to offer, really, not really either of these two kind of look rubbish, is prettiness. Like, this one you can easily walk over to, and, you can see what's going on at any given time. And this one, I think, just integrates really well because it is kind of super small. I mean, our farm area is just 3 by 3. The redstone circuitry is a little bit bigger than Mumbo's build, by the very nature that, our observers kind of point out all four sides, whereas here, you've only got two. Mumbo's design is theoretically infinitely expansible. I mean, you might need to add in some repeater loops somewhere. Theoretically, you could go infinitely off in that direction. So another thought that had occurred to me is if I used this design and I made it entirely one fruit or the other. Let's say we made an all-melon version of this thing. How would that stack up? Because if I did like an all-melon version and then directly next to it an all-pumpkin version, maybe that would be better? But that might be an experiment for a later video. So, if you like any of these designs, feel free to put that in the comments section below. I think these look really garish because I decided to, separate it based upon melon versus pumpkin. And this one, oh yeah, right, because we've got that sort of diamond formation, so we've got 3 melon on this side, 3 pumpkin on this side. And so that's why that still works over here, but not really over here. Yeah, so if you like any of these designs and want me to go more in depth with them, feel free to let me know in the comments section. I'm really pleased with how this one came out in particular, because that does look like something that you'd actually fit in like a bunker. Mumbo's it does as well, and I think you could probably put this like in the floor. Like if you covered this up with some stairs, then you could probably do something like, nope, not that way, this way, thank you. Probably do something like this, just sort of around the edge, and you could just sink this into the floor. And storage might be a little bit difficult to access, but then you could just chuck in some stairs or a ladder or what have you. So, yeah, I guess that is that. One thing I don't like is that you can see the redstone. But that is kind of immaterial. I suppose we could also replace, no, not this block. We could replace all of the edge blocks as well with solid blocks, but these blocks we can't really replace because this needs to be a transparent block, otherwise the system plain won't work on those ends. So that is all for the video today. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please leave a like. If you have any questions or comments, throw that in the comment section. And if you're new to the channel, then feel free to click that subscribe button and click the bell to be notified. And with that, I will catch you on the flip side. Thanks for watching, everyone.